Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's nice to meet all of you here again on our 11th National Youth Online Gathering session. Welcome again to the new year of 2022. I hope all of you are doing fine and well and staying safe during this pandemic still, while we're still in the midst of the pandemic. Thank you for joining us again. I can see there's about 400 people in the room already. Welcome to those as well who are joining us from YouTube. If you are joining us on YouTube, please feel free to please feel free to join us on our Zoom as well, because we do have a lot of slots available still for Zoom. So please do join us in the Zoom chat, in the Zoom call. That would be great. As usual as well, for those who are returning members who are joining us for the previous few sessions on the National Youth Online Gathering, kindly keep yourself muted, and we encourage you to turn on your video if your internet and bandwidth allows, and kindly rename yourself according to your state abbreviation. If you're from Kuala Lumpur, it will be KUL dash your name that you would like to be called, like shown here. Gerald Ong, KUL from Kuala Lumpur dash Gerald Ong, and we will begin shortly as well. So please remember to rename yourself. So like Isabel, who has not yet renamed herself, Chia Yu Hui, please rename yourself. That would be great so that we can get to know where are you coming from. Without further ado, let's have a look on what today's topic really entails about through this video. So enjoy.
Nothing about us without us. That is our call in the disabled community.
Persons with disability, the expectations are low to none. We have to get ourselves out there and get ourselves known.
Being disabled does not mean being powerless.
The possibilities are limitless. Quality of life, opportunities in employment and education, it's boundless.
The barriers are no longer on the person. The barriers for participation are actually on the environment, on the attitudes, and how the system is designed.
I look forward to the day when advocacy for persons with disabilities is not needed anymore because it's understood.
Indeed. So today's session we'll be talking about later on will be about PGI, in short, which actually means protection, gender, and inclusion. So later on, you will see that I will introduce our guest speaker today. I don't want to spoil the surprise. We have someone very special to speak to all of you today to deliver the message on what is it all about protection, gender, and inclusion. So for those who are just joining us both on Zoom and on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, please feel free to join us on Zoom. We still have slots available for you to join on Zoom so that you can have direct interaction with the speaker later on. Today's NYOG session will be very special. We do not want to take too much of your time. Again, thank you everyone for joining us on this weekend, on this afternoon. I know all of you might be, have your own busy schedules, but thank you so much for spending the time to join us. For those who just joined us, kindly again, a reminder to rename yourselves according to your state abbreviation, followed by the proper name which would like to be called. So again, as you see on my screen, Chia Yu Hui, you have rename yourself, so kindly, and many others, kindly rename yourself so that we can get to know you better from where you come from. Let's move on to the next video.
Anyone can be a victim of gender-based violence, but some are at higher risk than others. Inequality and discrimination lie at the root of gender-based violence. Disasters exacerbate pre-existing gender inequalities and discrimination, often increasing the incidence of gender-based violence during and in the aftermath of disasters. Every 10 minutes, an adolescent girl dies as a result of violence. 250 million women alive today were married before 15 years of age. In 62 countries, there is no recognition of male rape victims. The Red Cross, Red Crescent movement is taking action across the world at all levels. We are committed to doing more and to doing better to prevent and respond to gender-based violence in disasters.
Indeed. So the first video was talking about disability inclusion, and the second video talks about gender-based violence and how the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, and also in the Malaysian Red Crescent, how do we respond to this crisis of gender-based violence in emergencies. So today we're going to be talking later on, our colleague, our special guest will be talking about that a bit more to find out actually what can we do as Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers and members, youth members in our communities to ensure that these topics are addressed in a respectable and sensitive manner. So again, for those who are joining us, thank you for joining us. We're still giving a bit more time for people to join. Please call your friends, please invite your friends, tell them that there's still slots available in the Zoom call, so directly join the Zoom call and we'll be happy to have you before we begin our session. So please do enjoy the next video.
Shouting, insult, abuse, violence, rape, pain, tears, fear, shame, stolen childhood. Globally, 1 in 3 women and girls will experience physical or sexual violence during their lifetime. That is more than 800 million women worldwide. For many of them, the threat looms largest where they should be safest, in their own homes. In sub-Saharan Africa, 64% of women have experienced intimate partner violence at least once in their lifetime. 38% of all women murders are committed by intimate partners. Sexual and gender-based violence, or SGBV, is any act that is perpetrated against a person's will and is based on gender norms and unequal power relationships. It can result in physical, emotional, psychological, or sexual harm. Although women and girls are overwhelmingly affected by SGBV, men and boys can also be at risk. No matter your age or background, anyone can experience SGBV. SGBV is an issue faced by communities in all contexts.
Indeed, and to introduce to you our speaker who will jump on later to self-introduce herself, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, which is Ms. Charlene Liao, who is the Senior Officer of the Community Engagement and Accountability and Protection Gender Inclusion from the Malaysian country support team from the IFRC, from the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. So we have this very special speaker today to speak to all of you about the topics that are related to protection in terms of SGBV, gender-based violence, and talk about gender and also inclusion of people with different disabilities and backgrounds, part of the community and ensure community participation. So before I hand over the floor later on to her, let's see another last video before we can start today's session on PGI, protection, gender, and inclusion. So before we start again, just another last reminder to all of you about the renaming system. So kindly please rename yourself according to your according to your state, and we can begin the session after this video.
My name is Mina Mojtahedi, and I'm Disability Inclusion Coordinator for the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. I've been in Greece the past few days talking to refugees and migrants with disabilities about their experience during their journey to Greece and in accessing emergency wash services. What I've learned is that there's not enough attention to addressing the specific needs of persons with disabilities in humanitarian response. One man that I met is a wheelchair user, told me that he had to give up his wheelchair on his journey to Greece. And after 5 days on the Greek islands, when he finally got a wheelchair, it wasn't appropriate and he still needed his mother's help to get around. He told me that during the 34 days that he was on the islands, he used the toilet only 3 to 4 times because they weren't accessible and he needed his mother's help to use them. So he avoided eating food and only drank liquids during that time. Another man that I met who had lost his hands and who's an amputee told me that he needs his wife's help for personal hygiene. So he said that he used to wait until nighttime to use the toilets and the showers because the facilities were overcrowded and there was a lack of privacy during the daytime. These stories show that there's the lack of attention to the needs of persons with disabilities. It's not just a health concern, but also a concern for the safety and the dignity of persons with disabilities. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to the needs of people with disabilities from the very beginning of our humanitarian response, in designing, in planning, and in the immediate response. At IFRC, we're working towards raising awareness about the needs of persons with disabilities in WASH and adapting our WASH programs to be more inclusive.
Indeed. So the work of the Red Cross and Red Crescent is always to ensure that no one is left behind. And this also includes people with disabilities in all of our services and operation and programs that we reach out to the community. So without further ado, allow me to hand over the floor to Charlene, who will be talking a lot about our topic today, which is about exploring protection, gender, and inclusion. So Charlene, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Gerald, and hi, everyone. My great pleasure to be here today to share with all of you this topic. I can see over 600 of you in here, so very excited to share this. So just allow me to share my screen. Yeah, so today, as what we've seen in the couple of videos earlier, we will be talking about what protection, gender, and inclusion means in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, exploring gender and diversity, inclusion, and child protection. And so before I go into more details, I would like to start off with a question to all of you here. So what do we mean when we talk about protection, gender, and inclusion? So Gerald will be sharing a link that you can type out your answer, and I will also share my screen where you can see the answers that pop up. And basically, there is no right or wrong answer. I just want to get a bit of an idea what do you currently think this means to you when we talk about PGI, protection, gender, and inclusion. All right, some of you are saying maintaining equal rights, being treated equally, protect others, to make sure any person, any gender is protected in any form of discrimination. Protection means serious care about others or self. Gender means the difference between human. Okay, someone wrote, make everyone feel wanted. Okay, very interesting answers here. Protection on men and women, no matter age or background or environment. All right, great. We have some really good answers here. Anti-discrimination. I'll give 1 more minute for this. To protect others from any form of physical or traumatic harm, whether from our fellow men or from different organisms like viruses. Wow. Okay, great. So it's great to see some of the answers earlier. Yeah, let me just play the next video, which will give you a bit of an idea what PGI is in the Red Cross Red Crescent movement.
Hello everyone, my name is Jamila Mahmoud. I'm the Under-Secretary General for Partnerships at the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies based in Geneva. Today I'd just like to talk about how important it is to ensure that in our response to disasters, we take into account the elements of protection and inclusion. People affected by disasters actually experience it in very different ways. Maybe they have lack of access to information, they are unable to participate and add their voice in decision-making on the programs that we run. And this will, of course, impact how we respond and how they perceive our response, and also how they bounce back, how do they rebuild their lives again. As humanitarians and as staff and volunteers of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, we aim to adopt an approach that ensures the protection and inclusion of all people, considering their gender, age, ethnicity, and other factors that may affect their vulnerability. By doing so, we will be able to respond in a way that is most appropriate, most effective, and timely, and we'll be able to better prioritize who are most at risk. What we mean by integrating protection, gender, and inclusion into our emergency response is ensuring that dignity, access, participation, and safety of all individuals we aim to reach is present in all phases of the emergency operation, and considering this to be a key responsibility for all staff and volunteers. This is the IFRC's minimum standard.
Okay, so that was a little bit about what it means in the Red Cross Red Crescent movement when we talk about protection, gender, and inclusion. And how do we actually do that is actually through the DAPS. What we call it is the DAPS framework, which is dignity, access, participation, and also safety for all persons in all their diversity. So when we talk about dignity, what we mean is actually measuring measures to respect and safeguard, and to also promote dignity of individuals, protecting their well-being, and and ensuring that in the different contexts and different cultures that we're working with, we are providing those needs and also privacy. So an example that I can share with you is that, for example, hopefully this doesn't happen anytime soon again. Let's say a flood happens, right? Or a disaster. Women and men will have different needs. For example, women will need more extra care when it comes to menstruation, for example. So this would mean that there would be extra needs that we need to consider when we are providing assistance. And as I talk through this, this framework actually is really for all forms of assistance, or in all of the activities that MRCS is doing, that we need to consider all of these things. Next, we'll talk about access, and what does it mean when we talk about access is non-discrimination. So when we're providing assistance, or if we're doing programs with communities, we need to think about including people from different backgrounds. So for example, if someone was from a different minority group, for example, they need to be considered as part of the process of decision making as well. When we talk about next, physical accessibility, we need to consider, okay, are there people who have visual impairment, for example, or are there people who are not able to walk, they are on a wheelchair? So would they be able to reach the assistance that is provided by MRCS, for example? So that's something that we need to consider. And then economic accessibility, which means, let's say we provide help, or we're going to provide some assistance. We need to think about whether, for example, people reaching the distribution centers, for example, do they need to actually travel very far? Because that would mean that they have to spend a bit of money to go to the distribution center, for example, to receive assistance. So the last one is information accessibility, which is trying to reach as a diverse group of people as possible when we provide information, because some people, for example, if we are providing information through the internet, some people might not have internet to access those information. And if we're going to provide information to people who have visual impairment, for example, we may need to consider other ways, such as printing in Braille. Okay, next we'll go into participation, which is really full, equal, and meaningful involvement of all members of communities. What we're trying to do here is actually getting people from different backgrounds together, you know, even the children, the elderly, people who have different perspectives as part of the conversation, so that they are able to contribute in decision making. And when we talk about providing humanitarian assistance, we're actually looking at what are the ways that we can also improve our operations and our ways of working, is actually through participation of diverse community members, so that we can actually learn more about them and improve in the future. Apart from that, it would also mean that we are able to reach as many people as possible, and like some of the videos earlier that mentioned, not leaving anyone behind. Okay, and then we go into the safety part of the DAPS framework. which is looking at how we can protect individuals from sexual gender-based violence and prevention and response of it. How do we keep children protected? And also, how do we provide safe assistance? For example, if we're providing toilets, we need to ensure that it is safe for people of all different backgrounds to be using it. So, for example, is it well lit? Is it able to be accessed? Is it too far from where people live? Those are the things that we need to consider. So I'll talk a little bit more about when we're applying the DAPS framework. I repeat, the DAPS is dignity, access, participation, and safety. So through this is how we can approach PGI in our humanitarian response. And PGI will require the help of everyone, actually. So it is everybody's business, and not just one sector on its own. And what it means is that actually, for every activity that we do in Bulan Sabit Merah, Malaysia, for example, we need to consider all of these things. So when we talk about protection, what we're talking about is actually addressing violence and keeping people safe from harm. When we talk about gender and diversity, we're talking about addressing discrimination, and by doing that, we try to understand different risks for different people, because different people will have different needs depending on where they are from, what are their physical abilities, what language do they speak, for example. And then inclusion would be addressing exclusion. So getting people who are physically or mentally impaired involved in the process, for example, and also including children, including people of different backgrounds. So earlier I mentioned a lot about what does it mean when we talk about diversity, and I keep mentioning people from different backgrounds, right? So over here, I would like to highlight all of these things, which is, your age, your sexual orientation, your experiences, your nationality. All of these are actually layers that come together that make us who we are. So for example, an elderly woman could also have different physical abilities. For example, she cannot really see, for example, or she's from a minor ethnicity, for example. So those three things would already mean that depending on where she is or where she's from, she might be affected by those different social norms, for example, and also perspectives of different people, depending on which environment you are in. So I think it's important to recognize all of this, because if we fail to understand diversity in this way, it would, as I mentioned, it would mean that we might miss out on actually providing assistance, humanitarian assistance, or actually engaging with people from different backgrounds in the process of providing help. So I'd like to go into this little discussion here, and then we can do a bit of sharing later on. So I'll just read out this discussion based on what we just talked about earlier. So I am Mia. I turned 17 this year. At school, I have experienced discrimination based on my religion. It has been a few days since floods damaged my town. I had to move to a camp without my family. I have not been attending school and I often have nightmares. There are some activities that are planned for children aged 5 to 10, but I am too old to participate in these activities. While I was going to school, I had access to private facilities, access to sanitary products, and now I do not know where I can get them and do not have private facilities to use. There are also rumors spreading in the camp that some people are getting more food than others because they come from the same religious background as the host community. I'm worried about how this may affect me. So using this scenario, I just have two questions that I'd like all of you here to think about. And yeah, so Gerald will be sharing the link where you can answer these questions. The first question is, consider what kind of characters may impact role, space, and opportunities in a community. List all characters that come into your mind. So you can even think about what I just shared earlier regarding the different characters that make up diversity. And the second question is, when considering yourself, what kind of characters do you currently possess, and how do those characters affect your opportunities in your own community? Okay. So we can start with the first question first, and then we'll go to the next one. Okay, some people say racist, someone said politicians, someone mentioned misogynist, corrupted people. Some people are trying to see their talents. Good, kind, trustworthy, and responsible type of character. Society and humanity. Calm person, responsible, and never get angry easily. Ignorant people. Empathy. For a positive and friendly community, they need positive and friendly people. However, toxic and racist communities pop up because of toxic and racist people. Sympathetic. All right, so some examples here. It's interesting to hear your thought process. I will go on to, we can go on to the next question. Okay, actually, it's an interesting one here. Teachers and parents are the nearest source of education to shape a child's prior knowledge and mindset. So interesting for any teachers and also parents in the room here to know that. All right, so I will go, I will look at your answers for the next question. When considering yourself, what kind of characters do you currently possess and how do those characters affect your opportunities in your community? Okay. Friendly, and by being friendly, I can manage to communicate with others. I'm quite a short-tempered person, so it will make the community to judge and be annoyed about me. Age, race, ethnicity. I am part of a minority sexual orientation. I'm afraid people will judge me for only that, even though I'm the top student in my school. I think energetic when I behave different than our normal personality traits. People may take time to adjust to the situation. Personality also affects my ability to interact with others, which can impact our career success. Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. Indeed, all of these things actually affect, all these characters that you've mentioned affect our role and our community, right? And also, let's say I have a specific character, it would mean that I am less prone to harm, for example, compared to another person who has let's say a physical disability that causes them to feel excluded. So I would actually like to open up the session. If you could just, sorry, I would just like maybe 1 or 2 persons to share about their answers from this discussion, if you like. And it would also be great to hear what do you think of the story that was shared, as in Mia's story. So let me just stop sharing. Yeah, so if anyone would like to share, you can raise your hand. Okay, I'll just give it a minute. If not, I will continue my slides. Yeah, so what we have shared actually is really to highlight that we are all different. So like we mentioned here, there is a lot of intersectional perspectives. You know, some of you mentioned racism, some of you mentioned misogyny, and all of these things, even age, ethnicity, being kind could actually make a difference in our role and make a difference in the community that we are living in, or even in school, for example, where you go to school. So next, I'd like to share a bit more about all of these things, right, that I have shared from you know the DAPS framework to the diversity and all of that. Who are the people who are actually at the greatest risk, you know, when, let's say, you know, maybe not even just in the disasters. Of course, for IFRC, our approach to PGI is actually mainstreaming PGI principles, which is the depths in emergencies, and also when we're providing assistance and doing programs with communities. But it would also be worth thinking in your community, in your school, in your neighborhood. Sometimes these people that are mentioned here are also part of those being at risk. So, but right now, as this is more on emergency response, I'd like to highlight that, okay, of course, older people and people with chronic illnesses are at risk. People with disabilities, for example, if there is a flood, people who are able to walk and run, they can move faster than people who are on a wheelchair. And then next, people from minority groups or different religions and ethnicity, women and adolescent, girls, children, and also sexual and gender minorities. So another question here I have for all of you is, I'd like you to look at this image, and I'd like to know what do you notice from this image here. So the blue structure here on the top is actually a toilet. And if you can see, there is like steps here made of sandbags for people to walk up and go to the toilet. So I'd just like to hear from the crowd, from all of you, what do you notice and what do you think, like based on the dignity, access, participation, and safety perspective that I shared earlier, what can you observe from here? So again, there will be a Menti link being shared to you where you can type out your answers. All right, some interesting answers right now. There are not enough facilities. The stairs, yes. Stairs aren't safe, and the toilet too. The place also seems unhygienic. A little walking alone without any guide. There is no barrier beside the stairs. Dangerous for older people. People with disabilities can't get the access. A boy walking down, he had to jump to go up. He might fall down. All right. I think the toilet is not user-friendly. People with disabilities can't walk and are not able to climb to the toilet. Additionally, the environment is unhygienic. Very dirty. Yes, that might be true as well. Toilet is slightly up the hill. This can prevent disabled people from getting access to the toilet. The community should build it to make everyone have access to it. All right, I'll give one more minute for this. Okay, someone mentioned Rocky Side. I noticed that there are no guardrails for people when walking up the sandbags. The sandbags are a problem because it is not stable and people can fall. The toilet has no door or any occupied sign. It means anybody can just walk in. All right, thank you everyone for sharing. I'd just like to invite maybe one or two participants if you would like to share a little bit about why you wrote some of your answers. So maybe you can raise your hand if you would like to share.
Hi, Miss. So what do I think about it is the toilet has a poor infrastructure, and also old people and disabled people can't go up sandbags. It increases the risk of them to fall, and also the toilet has no complete sanitation, so germs can spread from one person to another. That's what I think.
All right, thank you so much, Sharvin. Yes, indeed. What we have seen earlier is really based on the depth principle, the dignity, access, participation, and safety. It doesn't really look into those things when that toilet was set up. Yeah, you can see that it's not easy to access toilet, and also, yeah, it doesn't look hygienic, although I cannot see what is inside there. It could be a possibility as well. Yeah, and then, you know, maybe some people, like, let's say for myself, maybe I can still go up to the toilet, but, you know, it still doesn't help those who are vulnerable and those who have extra needs that we need to help them with. And another thing is also maybe at night it would not be very comfortable actually to go up there, because we're not really sure if there's any lighting or anything if we walk up to the toilet. Yeah, and very interesting. Many of you mentioned hygiene and handrails and all of those things, which is, you know, when we talk about hygiene, it really isn't making people feel comfortable and not addressing needs with dignity. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. Okay, so we'll go into the next topic, which is inclusion as part of the PGI. And what do we mean by inclusion here is actually ensuring that in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, our activities will reach people without discrimination. So we need to promote inclusion regardless of gender, age, physical ability, or even, let's say I come from another country and I cannot speak the language. Secondly is ensuring that most vulnerable groups, which I have mentioned earlier, have access and the opportunity for participation, and not just participation, but participate in a meaningful way, and that nobody is left out in any stage of the process. So if we can look at the bottom circle here on the bottom left, you can see that only the green dots are within the circle, right? But what about those people who are, you know, in the blue, red, and yellow? They are not able to be part of that whatever activity that is included here, and that means that they are actually being segregated from either opportunities or discussions or assistance, for example. And then if we go to the last circle on the bottom right, what if we include them into the circle and integrate them? But what if we can actually be more inclusive by involving everyone equally into the process? And that is what it's like on the top circle. So I will go next. So we talked a bit about inclusion and diversity and what inclusion actually means. I'd like to talk a bit more about PWDs, what stands for persons with disabilities. Now, it's very important to highlight here is that why is the inclusion, of persons with disabilities so important? It's because based on the WHO World Report on Disability in 2011, 15% of the world's population have a disability. So that's actually a very alarming number. And 80% of people with a disability live in developing countries. That means 80% of the people who are disabled are actually in one of the, are more often not living in poor conditions. So that's why it's important to address the exclusion. And from IFRC's perspective, what do we mean when we talk about disability is actually impairment plus barriers that actually exclude people from being part of the process, for example. And when we talk about impairment, right, I know that I've talked a lot about people on wheelchairs and people with physical abilities. It's not just the physical, actually, what we're talking here. We're also looking at the mental impairments that people might have. So, for example, someone might have a mental impairment that slows down their mental growth, for example. So those are the things that we cannot see actually, and hence we wouldn't. I wouldn't know something if I cannot see it. So that's why these people are usually left isolated, and also they may feel that they are excluded and also invisible when we are trying to reach out to as many people as possible. Okay, so just to share with you, like this image here. If you can see in the first picture, we can see 2 adults and 1 child stepping on this big rock. They are trying to look over the fence to look at the view over the fence. So what happens is that the child is not able to see because the child is still very small and can't see over the fence. But what if in the second picture, what if we add more rocks so that everybody can see over the fence? And then we have the final picture which removes the rocks and removes the fence, so that we don't actually need to consider like adding the rocks. We don't need to think about those other things. We can actually remove those barriers and actually provide a more equal place where everyone can enjoy the view of the mountain over on the other side. So actually, like, I just like to share another example here is about myself, for example. When we talk about impairment, it could also mean like someone who needs spectacles, right? So actually, I myself need to wear spectacles. I'm not wearing it now because I'm wearing my contact lens, but let's say for myself, I actually need to wear spectacles or get something to correct my vision because I cannot, I'm short-sighted and I cannot see so far away. Now imagine in an emergency or a disaster when somebody drops or lost their spectacles, they can't see anymore. This would also mean that they might feel excluded. So it's also good to consider those things that we cannot see until we actually talk to people. All right, moving on, just sharing an example of how we can include people with disabilities in meetings or community discussions. You can see here in the top picture, there is a lot of people in the front, but the person on the wheelchair is sitting at the back. But if we look at the bottom picture, we can see that, hey, actually we can adjust the seating, right? To allow people on wheelchairs who would prefer to sit in the front seat, or they would like to sit in the middle, and at least give them a choice and the dignity to make that decision themselves. So I will play another video.
Perlindungan dan memberi perlindungan kepada mereka yang mungkin kita tak nampak sebab mereka tak boleh datang ke klinik, tak boleh datang ke pusat pemberian vaksin.
To leave anyone behind. So itu adalah satu objektif kami supaya tiada orang tertinggal dalam program vaksinasi negara.
Okay, that was an example of Bulan Sabit Merah Malaysia, actually involving bedridden communities in the national immunization program. So as the chairman Tunku Putri of MRCS has mentioned, we want to leave no one behind. So this is a very good example of when we actually consider people with disabilities to be included in COVID-19 vaccination, or even getting access to information about COVID-19. All right, so the next topic that we're going to talk about is child protection. So what do we mean when we talk about child protection in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement? When we are providing humanitarian assistance, is actually ensuring that children are safe from all forms of physical or psychological or emotional violence, injury or abuse, and also neglect or negligent treatment. So it's also important to highlight here children. Why do we need to actually consider their well-being and also safety? Is because more often than not, during a disaster or during an emergency, if a child gets separated from their family members, for example, because of the situation that they are in, or when children gets lost, they are at risk actually, and at risk of many different threats during that situation, and this is because children are still are very much dependent on adults, their parents or their caregivers, and they are also still in a stage of development, and they may not be able to actually know what to speak up for in terms of their protection, in terms of even getting access to health, for example. So it's important to note also that they could also be at risk for child labor and also human trafficking. So when we reach out to children, it's actually everyone's responsibility, not just the PGI focal point, not just when we talk about PGI, it's not just about the responsibility of staff or long-term volunteers who are with the MRCS for a long time already, but actually it's everybody's responsibility to ensure that children are safe, and that we are addressing what I mentioned earlier through the DAPS framework. Okay, so a very good example here that was done by the mental health and psychosocial support team of MRCS is actually creating child-friendly spaces for children to be able to feel safe and also included. And most of the time, also just providing a space that they can be comfortable with other children. So as you can see here in the photos, you can see here that they are provided with coloring books. There's also some interaction here, and encouragement of getting children to express their feelings and emotions if they need to. Yeah, so we've been through the DAPS framework, which is dignity, access, participation, and safety. We talked about gender and diversity, and then we also talked about inclusion and also child protection. So, of course, these are very much, a lot of this information is from the perspective of IFRC, but I'd like also for you to think about what you can do in school or in your close community. So just a disclaimer here, I'm not an expert in psychological support, but this is an example that what MRCS has done, which is providing psychological first aid for their flood relief. So what I can introduce here is this look, listen, and link approach to psychological first aid. So we have first aid for physical injuries, right? And we also have psychological first aid for mental health support. So let's look in a little bit more about what do we mean when we say look. So imagine in a situation where it's very huru-hara and everything, is actually to observe and check what's happening around you, what is happening, find out from the news. Is there anyone that you see that needs immediate basic assistance, for example, like food, water, and also emotional support. So the next one is to listen, because in situations of when disaster happens, it is when people are feeling stressed out, or they need some emotional support, they need someone to calm them down. It's important to actually listen first, instead of asking for information and details of what they have just gone through, and to encourage them to share if they are comfortable to share. So the approach here is to not it's not mandatory, like something. It's not like a form that we need to fill up. What has this person said? What has this person said? It's actually allowing them to share in their own time when they are ready. And then last but not least, we have the link approach, which is to help address basic needs and access to services when people need it. It could mean that we need to refer them to other professional members if it's very severe, to provide the support, or we can link them to other sources if they are looking for further information, for example. Yeah, so again, I repeat, PFA is psychological first aid, and PFA is comforting someone in distress and helping them feel safe and calm, assessing needs and concerns, protecting people from further harm, provide emotional support and also immediate basic needs, such as food, water, blanket, and a temporary space to feel safe and comfortable. And then last but not least, helping people to access information, services, and also social supports. What PFA is not it's not something only professionals do, but you as a volunteer can also join a training to be able to conduct psychological first aid. It's not something that only professional counseling or therapy can do. Sorry, it doesn't mean that you have to be. It's not a professional counseling or therapy, but it's more of like a first response, similar to first aid, which is responding to physical injuries. It is an immediate response. And then PFA is not, like I mentioned, encouraging a detailed discussion of the event that has caused distress, and it's not asking or pressuring someone to analyze what has happened to them, and also not to force them to share their feelings, but actually to listen first and allow them to share at their own time. All right, so what we can do to include persons with disabilities, for example. I won't go through all of this, but I'd like just to highlight, for example, the disability sport activity. So most of the time when we, let's say we talk about football, usually it involves a lot of running, a lot of kicking, and it's a very fast-paced game. So usually what we can do to raise awareness for the non-disabled community is that we can try different ways to include the disabled, example, people in wheelchairs into the game as well. So for example, maybe a few changes need to be made to the game, or you play in a more smaller space, for example, to get everyone included. And there's another one that I'd like to highlight is modified activity. For example, if you're in school, there are a lot of activities that require writing, for example, or require you to be in the classroom. Maybe people with different needs and different abilities would prefer to go to a larger space, for example. So maybe we can adjust those activities, let's say in a hall, for example, or instead of getting people to write, to actually cater to people who have visual impairment, we can actually use something more sound sensory, for example, and using sounds to communicate. So yeah, those are some of the examples that we can think about in our school setting. And just a very quick image here to show you in a picture is that, okay, if we look at the top photo, we can see that there is a staircase that goes to the next level in school. But if we notice, we also have at the bottom picture here, we have a ramp, right? So that it would be more accessible for people on wheelchairs, for example, because sure, with a staircase, maybe we can still help our friends on a wheelchair to go up to the next level. But that would mean that, you know, we are taking away, we are not really addressing the dignity part of it, and you know, sometimes we might even it might even feel like, okay, that person feels like this is a hassle to their friends. So why not we create a ramp, and this would allow them to travel up to the next level at their own time. And the other thing to highlight here also is that when we include people for outside sport activities, it can be much more integrated, as you can see in the second picture here. All right, so sharing some of these resources, if you are interested, you can have a look at these. You can actually Google them online. They are usually downloadable for free. And yeah, this is just for extra resources if you are interested. So that is the end of my session. I think, Gerald, before we go into the Kahoot session, of course, after this, we will have a quiz. But I would just like to say thank you, everyone, for allowing me this opportunity to share about protection, gender, and inclusion. I hope that it has been helpful for all of you. And I hope that you can also consider it in your day-to-day activity, and also in your environment, in your school, in your neighborhood. And yeah, even if you meet a new group of friends, you can consider this. So before we go into the quiz session, I would just like for everyone to share what is your biggest takeaway from this session? All right, great, everyone is equal. We shall not discriminate. Understand each other, everyone matters. Be kind. Be nice and be kind. We shall not discriminate. Treat everyone equally. All right, great. I'm glad to know that we have learned some important things today. Okay, I'll just leave it another minute. Yeah.
Great. Well, there are more. While more of you are still giving your input about your biggest takeaway from today's session, I'd like to thank Charlene on behalf of the Malaysian Red Crescent Youth for joining us and sacrificing her Saturday to be together with us to share about the protection, gender, and inclusion, and how the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and also the Malaysian Red Crescent is playing a big role in ensuring that no one is left behind. I think also one biggest takeaway from this session is that in our activities, in our programs, even in schools, we need to ensure that whatever we plan, be it activities in schools, in your regular campings, in your daily activities that you have under the Red Crescent clubs in schools, we need to put on a PGI lens to ensure that people with different backgrounds or with different needs are also incorporated into our programs. And something here that we should also take away is that everyone counts. So every individual with their unique differences and sometimes the challenges that they face, we need to ensure that they have access and we do not leave them out behind as well. So thank you so much, Charlene, for that session. Allow me to now begin to conclude the session. So just before we go into our Kahoot session, I'd just like to share with you a video to just take away these as well, to wrap up PG.
Protection. No one left unsafe. Keeping people safe from harming. Gender. No one left behind. Understanding and analyzing different needs, capacities and risks of individuals based on their gender and other diversity factors. Inclusion. No one left out. Addressing inequalities between people. PGI aims to ensure that all action provides dignity, access, participation and safety for all. It provides guidance on how to mainstream these 4 principles based on a consideration of gender, age, disability and other diversity factors. This includes limiting people's exposure to the risks of violence and abuse and ensuring that programs do no harm.
All right, so yes, I hope that that you've been able to see the video that summarized quite well what's the takeaway also from today's session. Now on to our most anticipated session also for this session is our Kahoot session. So I invite everyone to please prepare your mobile devices or to open another tab window in your computers to go to Kahoot either Charlene or Jamila will be sharing the Kahoot question, code as well. So in the meantime, while our logistics teams are trying to sort that out, please go onto your into your devices and type in the code that you see on the screen right now, which is the game pin 14. Hold on. Can we go to the game pin of 1469055. 1469055. Can we also just enable the sound to be shared at the same time? So for those who are joining us on YouTube as well, feel free to join in the game. Again, but a kind reminder that the Kahoot session should only be participated by our students who are below 18 years old in secondary school, so that we provide the opportunity for our young people or young youth members to be able to win some prizes for them as well. So we're going to begin the game very shortly. I see we have about 680 people who are online in Zoom. I'm not sure how many are on YouTube, so quickly jump onto your devices, open the Kahoot.it, or if you have downloaded the Kahoot app, access your Kahoot app and input the game pin 1469055. 1469055, or simply use your mobile devices to scan the QR code here, and you'll be directly have access to the Kahoot quiz that we're going to start shortly. We're at the 500 mark, so about 180 more people to join the Kahoot session. You have chances to win some vouchers from our sponsors today, which is Outpost Sendirian Berhad. So as you are going to begin the new schooling year as well in April, so you can have some chances to buy some new Red Crescent uniform accessories or even some just regular school accessories from our sponsor today, which is Outpost Camp Paros. So we are at the 550 mark. I'll give one more minute. We will start sharp at 3:20 p.m. All right. So one more minute, guys. Tell your friends, jump online, jump into the game as soon as possible so that we can begin the quiz. So, all right. It's already 3:20, so we're going to start the game now. Don't worry, you'll still be able to join as we start the session. So let's begin the game now. All right, let's begin the quiz. The first question is, what are the characteristics of diversity that should be celebrated? So we have 1, religion, job level, experiences, all of the above. So what are the characteristics of diversity that should be celebrated? Great. So the answer is, of course, all of the above. Every kind of characteristics of diversity is equally appreciated. So next, please. What is the percentage of the world's population that has a disability? So were you paying attention to the session earlier? So based on the WHO World Report on Disability in 2011, how many percentage of the world's population has a disability? 10, 15, 20, or 25? Do you recall? Yes, indeed. It is 15% of the world's population. That's a very, very big number. Remember that we have more than 6 billion people in the world. So next. So the leader is now Ng Lee Yoon. So let's see, will he or she stay up there till the end? What does DAPS stand for? DAPS. Is it dignity, access, pride, safety? Is it dignity, access, participation, safety? Is it dignity, activation, participation, safety? Or none of the above? So do you recall the 4 main acronym that the Red Crosses use? So yes, indeed, it is dignity, access, participation, and safety, which we always highlight in all of our operations. So next, please. All right, Lee Yoon is still in the lead. In which sectors should we apply PGI principles in emergencies? Is it mental health and psychosocial supports? Is it water, sanitation, and hygiene? Is it cash and voucher assistance? Or is it all sectors that we should apply PGI principles in emergency operations that the Red Cross has? Yes, indeed, it's not just mental health and psychosocial supports, but in every sector that the Malaysian Red Crescent or the Red Cross and Red Crescent is delivering in requires, that's why we always say to put on a PGI lens in all of our operations to ensure that we leave no one behind. We don't leave behind single mothers. We don't leave behind people who are vulnerable, people with disabilities, women in WASH, and so on, who require further attention. So next, please. Lee Yoon is still in the lead. Wow, let's see. What is disability? Is it physical impairment plus barrier equals disability? Or is it impairment plus barrier equals disability? Or is it mental impairment equals disability? So what is the disability? The formula. All right. It is impairment, any form of impairment, plus the barriers that exist in our environment, which makes it a disability. All right. So we are only as limited as the environment enables us. So we need to ensure that whatever we do in all of our operations, in the lives that we live, that we remove as much barrier as much as possible. So next. Which of the following are part of providing access in the DAPS framework? Information accessibility, physical accessibility, non-discrimination, or all of the above, right? Which of the following are part of providing access? Do let us know. Yes, indeed, all of the above. We need to have information accessibility in order to know what are the services or support that is out there so that people with disability or any other differences can access them. And we also need to have physical accessibility for people with physical disability, and also ensure that whatever you do, we practice non-discrimination. So yes, all of the above is equally important. Next, please. All right, Leon's still in the lead. Let's see. True or false? PGI is none of my business. I'm just a new volunteer to MRCS, so I'm just a young volunteer. What can I do? PGI is something that is not relatable to me. Is it a true statement or is it something false? What do you guys think? Yes, indeed, it is false. So PGI is everyone's business. All of us can play a small part who collectively can make a big change in the community that we live in to ensure that no one is left behind. So next, please. Lee Yun, yes. So is this a good practice of the DAPS framework? The image is loading. Let's see. Mia is from a different minority group and religion. Therefore, I will not include her in our activity. Is this a good practice? I hope all of you know the answer. Indeed, no, right? Regardless of the person's background, we should not discriminate. We should not exclude anyone from our society or our operations, because every one of us brings a different flavor to our society, to our community, and that is what makes us stronger. So next. The leadership board has changed a bit. What are the common threats to children during emergencies? Separation from family members, trafficking and child labor, and psychosocial distress, or is it all of the above? So what are the common threats to children, specifically to children during emergencies? Indeed, all of the above. All of these pose a huge threat to children because it can really adversely affect their mental and physical well-being during emergencies. Child exploitation is something that is a big no-no. So next, please. So Iqmal is now in the lead. Let's see, there's about 5 more questions. What is the percentage of the world's population living with disabilities in developing countries? This is that in the earlier question. So what is the percentage of the world's population living with disability in developing countries? The world population, people living with disability, the population, total in the world. How many percentage of them are in developing countries? About 80% of them, and that's why it's important. Malaysia, being part of a developing country, needs to ensure that we must remove as much barriers within our society so that whatever physical impairment that they have is no longer a disability. So next, please. Iqmal is still in the lead, followed by Leon. So let's see. Next. So which of the following are examples of psychological first aid? We also actually addressed this a bit during our mental health and psychosocial support. Do you remember, for those who joined the previous session? Is it pressuring someone on details of what happened? Pressuring people to share their feelings and reaction to an event? Helping people access information, services, and social support? Or something only professional counselors can do? All right, the answer is helping people access information, services, and social support. Sometimes as volunteers, we are channels, we are facilitators to ensure that people have access to information, services, and support. So next, please. Next, please. Yep, Ikmal is in the lead. Few more questions. Question number 12. Which of the following is not a good example of applying PGI principles in your school activities? Interesting. So not including the participation and opinion of a classmate who comes from a different country, including your friend who has a physical impairment in disability sport activities, learning sign language to communicate with a classmate who has a speech impairment, or none of the above. Again, which is not a good example. Right, the first one, which is not including the participation and opinion of a classmate who comes from a different country, because we are discriminating that person and excluding them because of their different background. They're not the same as us. So next, please. That is not a good practice. All right, Ikmal is still in the lead. 3 more questions. Only volunteers are responsible for ensuring PGI principles are mainstream. Is it true or false? Only volunteers are responsible for ensuring PGI principles are mainstream. What is your answer? All right, cool, false. It's not just volunteers alone, it is a whole of society approach to ensure that PGI principles are mainstream into our daily life, be it in public policies, be it in leaders, government leaders, country leaders. All of us play a role. So next, please. Ikmal is still in the lead. Let's see. 2 more questions. The second last question, which is, what issue are we trying to address in connection is not so good, so give us some time. Too many people are on the game today. All right. Apologies as we are facing some technical difficulties. Please be patient. We're almost there. So just try to be patient. We are back. So what issues are we trying to address in gender and diversity? Is it addressing violence? Is it addressing discrimination? Or is it addressing exclusion? So what are we trying to address in gender diversity and diversity? All right, yes, indeed. We are addressing discrimination a lot in gender and diversity because of the gender that people identify with, and also the diversity that people come from different backgrounds, and so on and so forth. So next. Last question, guys. We're almost there. Lee Yun is back on the first. Let's see. Last question. It's a make or break situation. Which of the following are not good examples of applying PGI principles? So ensuring latrines or toilets, temporary toilets that are built are well lit, excluding people from different backgrounds, providing information in Braille for people with visual impairment. I'm sure some of you know what is Braille. None of the above. So which of the following is not a good example? All right, excluding people from different backgrounds is not a good example of applying PGI principles. So we are at the end of our quiz session. Let's see who are the top winners, top 5 winners who are going to receive voucher prizes from our sponsors today, which is Outpost Uniform Sdn Bhd. In third place is Eng Ziyu. Please remember to contact us, the leaders. In second place is Ikmal Haziq, and I think the first is Eng Lee Yun. Congratulations. And fourth and fifth as well, you also have a Fahrain and Azril. Please reach out to nyog@redcrescent.org.my to give us your information. Congratulations to all winners. All of you are winners as well, so that you can receive your prizes as well. And with that, please also give us your feedback on the Kahoot quiz and how you find it. Was it too easy, too difficult? And would you recommend this NYOG also to your friends? Do let us know so that we can improve on it better. All right. So back to our session also. So thank you so much, everyone. We are towards the end already of our session for today. Thank you so much for your active participation, both on Menti and Kahoot and in the chat box as well. We are now sharing attendance link for you to fill it up. Please, again, make sure that you fill it up correctly. And also, you can check your e-certificates when they are issued and generated within 5 working days. So give us some time for the organizers to issue the certificate. And you can check your certificate and records for all of your previous certificates on NYOG on the MRCS certificate search system as well. All right. So this is indeed the last session of the NYOG. Thank you for your active participation. Please like, follow, and subscribe our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And the organizing team is discussing on whether for 2022 there will be another series of NYOG. We are not sure at this current moment. Please do let us know also in your opinions to us. Reach out to us on any of this on any of our social media to let us know if there is a high demand to have the National Youth Online Gathering series again for this year. We would plan accordingly. But all good things do come to an end sometimes. It may be a temporary pause, it may be the end, we don't know yet. But I would like to thank all of you. I've seen earlier also during the session, while your cameras are turned on, many of you are wearing the Red Cross and Red Crescent uniforms, and it's something I can see that many of you are proud of. So I'm really, really thankful and inspired to see all of you wearing your uniforms. And also a huge thanks to Charlene, who's still staying with us to the end of the session. Really appreciate your time that you've spent with us this weekend. And I hope that everyone stays safe, despite the high number of cases of COVID-19 infections. And we'll see you again somewhere, somehow, through our interactions to ensure that that our youth continually grow and develop despite the challenges of the pandemic. So for those who are joining us on YouTube, thank you as well. Please again like and subscribe our channel so that you'll be notified of any new videos or even live sessions that we may have in future, so that you can be a part of what we're doing for the youth. So I really thank all of you, and we hope to see you again somewhere, somehow. So for those who are joining online, see you again next time.